Dementia residents say that they like to think and they like to learn. When thinking, it's a starting point for them to move forward from, and if not, they can feel themselves slipping back. But when they do think, they can feel themselves coming back. And with that thinking and that focus and that positive thinking, their concentration improves, and with that, their confidence and their ability to communicate. So in these thinking workshops, these dementia residents made an incredible effort to think positively, focus and concentrate so that they could gain these newly acquired skills. And it wasn't just for their benefit, but for the other residents in the unit, it made a big difference as well, because there was a more positive atmosphere, people were better socialised, and there was more tolerance all round to be able to tolerate the disturbances in a dementia unit with positivity that is actually possible to be able to tolerate. So just to give you some examples of how this worked in the dementia facility that I worked at, and how these dementia residents were able to improve their thinking and how that affected the group at large. So in the core group, there are 8 to 10 people that used to come every day to the thinking workshops, and there was a second row as well of about 4 or 5 people that used to come and go, and they had a particular interest in part, but that also made a difference to the wider group and the integration in terms of how it all became assimilated within the unit. There were 3 residents who were able to initiate their own thinking and learning. One man used to get the newspaper every day, which was great for him. He was the only resident that had his own subscription, and his niece had organised that for him. So that was big credit on her part. And he used to read it cover to cover, 3 to 4 hours a day. He was the only resident I met, he could actually write letters. I actually witnessed it. Remarkable. His niece had given him an A4 pad, or he'd bought it with him, and he had a pen, and he kept track of that. He used the hospital table, which is really a trolley for medication and cups of tea. He used to just wheel that in and get a dining chair and write this letter. It was a full A4 page, which he'd written to his sister, and he was asking me about it, where he could post it. And I suggested that he give it to his niece to post. But anyway, he'd garnered enough concentration and thinking power from that newspaper reading to be able to write a letter, which takes enormous concentration. So it is possible. The other lady who initiated her own thinking and learning was a woman, a former school teacher, and she just read all day, whatever she could get her hands on, magazines, books, newspaper articles. She didn't have a newspaper subscription, though she would have benefited from one, but she was particularly skilled at being able to gather whatever resources were around. She'd squirrel it away in her walker, so she always had something to read. So she initiated her thinking, and the other gentleman who was from the army, the former Brigadier General, he was remarkable in the sense that he just used to think all day. I mean, he must have been used to that lifelong thinking through the history right back from Mesopotamia. He could go from that far back right forward. All the army history, he still had it right there. There was another woman too, when I think about it. She wasn't in the thinking group because she'd passed away, sadly, but she had a very good mastery and memory for Shakespeare, because her father was used to get them to recite Shakespeare every night at the table, and so she'd remembered that. But the 3 examples of these people that kept their thinking going was a big help, but the other 5 or 6 in the group, the thinking group, needed encouragement. They wouldn't have probably initiated thinking and learning on their own had there not been the group effort at hand. So that's why it is important to have a group effort in this work, because they inspire each other, that being the whole point of it. They're going to be inspired seeing others make an effort, especially those that haven't been communicating before, who haven't been making an effort to contribute in the workshops before, when they see them brightening up and saying whatever, like even 2-3 words like the sun's out or it's a beautiful day, when they hadn't heard them speak like before ever, except for please and thank you, that's inspiring, because then the residents can see that it is possible to be able to speak and communicate and think and concentrate. And it takes some confidence. It takes actually courage first. It takes courage, because you're never sure when you speak up if you'll be shut down, shut off, as happened prior, when you may have tried to speak and maybe it didn't make sense, or the person was in a hurry and didn't want to listen to you, or shut you down, or, dismissed you. So when that's happened to you a few times, which happens with dementia a lot, because people have stigma and prejudice, thinking that you can't think. And so whatever you say isn't given credit. But once the group became established and trust built and everyone realised that we were all there to work together, give respect, listen to each other and encourage each other, when that whole sort of community developed in that way, things went from strength to strength. And in terms of the thinking itself, even for people that didn't join in the workshop, they would sometimes sit in the second row and benefit as well. There was one lady and she'd been a farmer's wife. She lived on a big farm out in the Wop somewhere. She loved cats. She was very sad to have to leave her cat behind, and she had all cat memorabilia, cushions and pictures and photos of her dear cat, which seemed to help her. But she would sit in the sunny alcove, the precious sunny alcove, which residents never really liked to leave, even for the thinking workshops. And it used to take a lot of encouragement to get them there every morning. And it was a big sacrifice for them to leave their sunny alcove seat to come to the thinking workshop. Anyway, most of them did, but this woman didn't like to come to the workshop itself. But she'd sit in the alcove and look at the group and observe. And she'd say, I can see them thinking. It does them good, doesn't it, this thinking work? I mean, it was doing her good as well, but she saw the main benefit as the fact that it was helping others think. And she was good when she was sitting there with the thinking workshop. But like any of us, when her good friend came along who had wanted nothing to do with it, she'd previously been well resourced with a supportive daughter, but who unfortunately became unwell, and she became bitter and negative from the fact that she wasn't getting her daily coffee, cafe outings, and she really turned. She had nothing to stimulate her thinking, that was why, and she just let negativity just sort of swept her up. And this friend that used to sit at the sunny alcove, when she was in her company, she'd become negative as well. But when she was sitting in the sunny alcove observing the thinking workshops, she was bright as a button. So that's how positive thinking and positive company can affect us all, as it did the residents. So that's it for today, for the thinking and how thinking and learning is so important for dementia residents. It's really important that they can keep their newspaper subscription, that they can have magazines and coffee books and things to read of their interest, so that they can keep their thinking going. And it gives them a chance of being able to, separate themselves from that dementia stress and come through that pathway of focus and concentration, so that they can have quality of life and build up their confidence, at least enough to be able to communicate and make friends and be part of a positive, thinking, educated dementia community. Even if elementary, still it's good. Whatever efforts, it doesn't matter. Whatever, whether it's just at the starting point of the alphabet or names, right through to reading the newspaper, whichever end of the spectrum it is, it's all valuable, thinking at large. So I've written these 2 books, The Resident's Voice and The Resident's Rise, both from a dementia unit, on Amazon and in the website below. Thank you for your looks, likes and comments, and please subscribe if you're interested and pass on these links. Thank you.